Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is our Zoom recorded lecture for Law 1210, Law of Contract 1. The topic for today is capacity to contract. Actually, the discussion focuses on contracts entered into by a minor. Let's have a look what I have with me here. And this is the introduction. So basically, so far we have completed discussion on the essentials or elements which form, which needs to be proved, okay, which needs to be fulfilled, okay, whenever a contract is considered as enforceable. Okay, on top of all the essentials to the contract, like offer, substance, intention, and consideration, another requirement by the law is that the contracting parties who enter into a contract, they must have capacity to enter into the contract. So what's the meaning of the word capacity here? So the legal term here, all right, it means that, or it refers to the ability. So capacity means ability or competence, okay, of persons, of contracting parties to enter into a legally binding contract. So without this capacity, then the contract is not considered as legally binding. So we are going to discuss further after this. So all persons, basically the rule is that all persons of full age have contractual capacity. That's the general rule. And then if a party, one of the parties, or maybe both of the contracting parties to a contract, if the party lacks capacity, then basically the essential element of a valid contract is missing. Meaning that here the contract is not considered as valid, it is invalid. So in other words, the contract is void and it's not enforceable, it's not legally binding. And then as far as our Contracts Act is concerned, the starting point, the foundation, okay, the basis of the requirement, okay, here, which relates to capacity, is Section 10, okay, of Contracts Act 1950. So I reproduce the whole provision here. Section 10 provides that all agreements are contracts, okay, if, so that's the requirement, if they are made by the free consent of the parties competent. That's the keyword which relates to our discussion today. Okay, competent to contract for a lawful consideration and with a lawful object and are not hereby expressly declared to be void. So the focus is on the word competent. The parties must be competent. The parties must be able to prove that they actually have necessary capacity or competence that the law requires. Let's move further. So now the question is, okay, who are competent to contract? So the next section that we're going to discuss is at the bottom there. Okay, this is another reproduction of the section of the Contracts Act 1950, Section 11. So every person is competent to contract. Who are them? Okay, who is of the age of majority according to the law which he is subject, and okay, together, who is of sound mind. And so there are three things here. And is not disqualified from contracting by any law to which he is subject. So from this particular section of provision, we are able to extract three elements, okay, three necessary features here, okay, and all must be fulfilled in order to prove that the party is competent to contract. The first one, okay, the contracting party must attain the age of majority. Okay, so what's the age of majority? We are going to discuss in the next slides. And then another requirement, the second one, the party must be of sound mind. Okay, must be sane, basically. Cannot be unsound mind, cannot be mentally, cannot be that, cannot be unsound lah, in other words, okay, or the plain term would be cannot be crazy, all right? Or cannot be insane. And then another one, okay, the person, for example, age of majority, yes, check, sound mind, check, but then another requirement is that the contracting party must not be disqualified from contracting. For example, usually the obvious example is if the person is declared to be bankrupt. So again, cannot enter into a contract despite that he has attained the age of majority and he is of sound mind. Okay, so there are three requirements, but for the topic today, okay, for our topic here, for the purpose of syllabus, we are going to focus on the first one, age of majority. So it revolves around minor, major and minor. Okay, so whether minors are competent to enter into a contract. So remember, okay, our Malaysian Contracts Act, it is in pari material with Indian Contracts Act. So we are going to refer to, Indian cases, decided cases will be very relevant, okay, applicable here in Malaysia, very highly persuasive. So under the Indian and the Malaysian law of contract, basically all contracts entered into by a minor other than for necessary. So that's the exception actually, okay, other than for necessaries. They are, okay, all other contracts, they are generally void. So again, this is the general rule. So as usual, the rule, it comes with the exceptions to balance it, okay? And then we have looked at section 10 and 11 just now. That's, what is written on the slide there. Okay, and for as far as our topic is concerned, okay, there are few statutory provisions that we are going to refer to. So, and then we started with section 10, 11. We haven't gone to section 69 yet. And then we are going to look at section 2 and section 4 as well. The Age of Majority Act 1971. And another act is Young Persons Employment Act 1966, revised 1988. And the specific section will be section 1A and section 13. Okay, so all this act will be discussed when we, at the relevant part of our discussion. So we go to Age of Majority Act. So the question is, what is the age of majority in Malaysia? Okay, at what level or at what time or at what age the person is considered as major, okay, major and not minor, no longer minor. Okay, so the answer lies in section 2 of the Age of Majority Act, because all persons in Malaysia, they attain, okay, the age of majority at 18. So if 17 plus, still it's not considered as major. So the relevant provision, that's the relevant part of the section here. The minority of all males and females shall cease, they shall stop, and determine within Malaysia at the age of 18 years. So mean that here, 17 plus or yet to reach 18, then considered as minor. And every such male and female attaining the age shall be of the age of majority. So we have the word minority, majority. Okay, why we want to focus on minors here? Because why? Minors are, as far as the law is concerned, from a legal perspective, minors are treated differently. Why is that so? Okay, what's the reason behind it? Because the law recognize young or inexperienced people can make mistake, tend to make mistake compared to those who are major, those who have attained the age of majority. So the law actually gives special exception, okay, special treatment, okay, legal treatment to minors, or we call it young or inexperienced, lacks of experience people. In Bahasa, we have like the word like makan garam, right? I mean, if you are older, then you tend to eat more salt. Makan garam, you have more experience compared to the young ones. Okay, the first case for today, the leading case actually, the case is Mohori Bibi and Durmodus Gos. Very old case, but this is classic case, landmark 1982. This is a case from India, but decided by Privy Council, so it is applicable in Malaysia. So the full citation is 30 IA Indian Appeal 114. That's the page number. Okay, and this is the relevant, the rule or the ratio which is relevant for our discussion here, okay, in Mohori Bibi. So Privy Council said that in considering the effect of a contract entered into by a minor, so the Privy Council on appeal from India, so whatever appeal, you will go to Privy Council. So the same practice also here in Malaysia, okay, before we have our own federal court. So on appeal from India, so Privy Council examine, okay, the scope of section 10 and 11 of Indian Contracts Act. And it is in perimeter, similar, okay, to our Contracts Act 1950. And then what's the decision? What's the finding or observation by Privy Council? Privy Council held that contracts entered into by minors, okay, were void. So whatever contracts, if minors are the one who entered into it, signed it, executed it, then they were void. Okay, no legal effects, not enforceable whatsoever. Okay, let's have a look at the facts of the Mohari Bibi case here. So it involved minor, obviously. Okay, another synonymous, okay, relevant or connected. Okay, similar. Okay, similar term of minor is infant. Okay, so if it's not legal context, then infant means baby. But for legal perspective, okay, infant means minor. So it involves transaction of mortgage. So in Malaysia, we use the word charge. So similar transaction. Okay. So the infant mortgager, so mean here the infant is the one who mortgage, who charge the property. So later, the infant, the minor, sued the mortgagee, okay, for a declaration that his mortgage was void. Meaning he entered into mortgage transaction, but later he asked for a court's declaration saying that, oh, the mortgage was void and inoperative. Okay, cannot be enforced. What's the basis? On the ground that when he executed it, when he entered into it, he was actually underage. So that's the claim by the minor, okay, asking for declaration. And then actually the court, the Indian court, okay, Indian High Court, okay, the judgment actually gave decision in favor of the minor. And then this judgment was upheld, okay, on appeal by Court of Appeal, and also was upheld by Privy Council. And then in other words, okay, here, if you were to apply Privy Council decision in all contracts which involve minor, then those contracts actually will have the effect of void, invalid effect. Okay. So again, if we were to look deeper, okay, in certain circumstances, okay, if we were to apply this decision in all contracts, okay, it might give rise to harsh consequences, okay, because minor, unlike position, because common law different approach, okay, we haven't come to that yet. So minor, okay, under Indian Contracts Act, under Malaysian Contracts Act, okay, basically minor cannot enforce any agreement against an adult. So sometimes we want to give rights to minor to enforce the contract. But again, okay, the general ruling is that whatever contracts entered into by infant or by minor, they are considered as void, okay, cannot be enforced. Okay, let's have a look at the position in Malaysia, okay, under Malaysian law. Actually, if you were to look at all the sectional provisions, there's no specific section which expressly mention about the effects of agreement entered into by minor, okay. So whenever the provisions are silent, okay, on this legal ruling or legal rule, then we have to look at the case law. Okay, so position of such an agreement was discussed by courts. So in a number of decided cases. So cases supplement the legal provision, the statute, basically. Okay, the first case, again, another classic case, this is before independent. Okay, the case is Tan Hee Juan by his next friend, Tan Si Bok, and suing, or the case is brought against Tay Bo Kiat and Lai Sun, reported in year 1934. It involves transfers of certain land here. Okay, two transfers, not one, two transfers were executed by the plaintiff who was a minor. Okay, in respect of two pieces of land, and the transfer was made to the two defendants. So all the number two here. Okay, two defendants respectively, and later, the infant, okay, actually the one who filed a case is the next friend. It's like the representative, okay, the guardian, okay, of the infant. So the action actually, you're going to learn in detail later when you do your civil procedure. Later, it's a matter of procedure. Okay, who can file a suit, who can take action if the party is a minor. So the action actually brought by the plaintiff next friend, okay, appointed by an order of a court. So why they are suing? Okay, what's the purpose of claiming the suit here? Is to have these two transfers set aside. So they want to set aside these transfers on the basis that, on the ground that, at the time the transfers were executed, the plaintiff herein was a minor. So the one who transferred the property belonged to the minor, and then the minors transferred the property, but he was a minor when he did so. Okay, when the transaction were entered or executed. So again, because this is very old case, judgment was by Privy Council. So similar to Mohori Bibi just now. So the Privy Council made it clear, okay, the effect of Section 10 and 11 of Contracts Act of India, okay, is that an infant cannot make a contract. So the court just reiterate the similar ruling, which was upheld in Mohori Bibi. So a contract made by an infant is not only voidable, okay, but actually is void, as no contract at all from the very beginning. So decision of the Privy Council, okay, in respect of Mohori, with regards to Mohori Bibi, is binding on this court, okay, binding in Malaysia, and therefore there can be no doubt that whatever those transfers are void. Doesn't matter, 1 transfer, 2 transfers, 3 transfers, okay, whatever transfers, whatever transaction entered into by a minor. So basically, they are considered as void, not enforceable, not binding. Okay, so meaning applying the ruling of Privy Council to the transaction, to the facts of the case. So as the registration of these proprietors has been obtained by a void instrument, so even though it was being registered whatsoever, but now it becomes void. Okay, the effect of Section 42. So now we cross-refer to National Land Code, Section 42, Clause 3. The registration is void. And the court said, well, we have no other option or alternative, but we must declare registration was void. Okay, because why? The executed contract was void at the first place. Okay. So what happened to the property now? Okay, because now the effects here is that because the moment the contract is void, so we need to restore the party back to their earlier position. So now, the parties are restored to their position. So restoring the property to minor. Minor can get back his property. Okay, because why? The transfer, okay, that was done actually was void. So the property reverts back to the owner. Okay, another case involving minor later. Okay, just now 1930 something and now 1978. Leha binti Juso and Awang Johari bin Hashim. And this is an appeal case, I think decided by federal court. So appeal from decision of High Court, so allowing a claim by the respondent. So it involves, again, it involves a minor. So appellant as administrator of the estate of Mat bin Juso. Mat bin Juso is already a deceased, so whole deceased share in certain lands, okay, as trustee thereof and on behalf of the respondent. And that the respondent is entitled to possession of those portions occupied by him, okay, pursuant to an agreement of sale. So it involves a sale and purchase agreement. Okay, respondent as purchaser and the deceased as a vendor. Okay, so the appellant, while disclaiming knowledge, meaning here he said, "Oh, I don't know about it." Okay, appellant also argued that, okay, the respondent at the date of the agreement was incompetent, okay, to contract because he was born on 31st March. So when the contract, when the sale agreement was executed, actually respondent lacks capacity. I mean, here respondent was a minor. So whatever contract entered into, whatever sale agreement entered into, it is null and void. So you cannot ask for specific performance. Okay? You cannot really ask for court's order to specifically perform the contract which has been entered into by a minor. So respondent was a minor. Yeah. So federal court allowed the appeal and set aside the order of the learned judge, the lower court. And the court ordered the appellant to repay 5,000 purchase price, meaning we restore, okay, of the respondents vacating the lands occupied by him. Okay, pursuant to that, meaning here the court actually made a legal ruling here, made an order by virtue of section 66, and the court asked the deposit to be refunded to the appellant. Now here you vacate the property, you return the property, and then deposit has to be refunded as well, whatever payment, okay, for the sale transaction here. So we stop here. We are going to continue in our next part. Okay, I stop share. Okay, that's all for this part. We are going to continue later in the second part of the recorded lecture. Assalamualaikum.